I had not heard of Terradyne or the Gurkha before this.
I don't even know what it was.
I haven't heard of Terradyne or the Gurkha.
And I seen it in a Fast and Furious movie, and it was Hobbs's vehicle.
Fast and Furious, when they're jumping through the streets of like Brazil.
Planning process on something like this obviously is a lot more extensive than just working with a single client that walks in the door.
Not too many people see these around the street, so as little attention as we can give on towards ourselves that we have these, you know, six-figure vehicles in here, the better.
We're working with a marketing company who's organizing the entire project, so we have to go through the marketing company, we have to go through Terradyne, who's building the trucks, we have to consult with Ardbeg.
Again, this is just conceptual rendering. This is the goal, this is the ideal look.
Yeah.
When we were designing it, we don't know the specifics regarding the vehicle, the parts of the vehicle, what can and can't be painted, so.
Yeah.
There has to be a lot of dialogue back and forth.
Are we doing anything with the interior at all? Is there a special coating that's put on the vehicle? Are those able to be removed? How are they being delivered? Do you have the exact vinyl dimensions for everything? The only last question really that I have would be, like Justine said, to have a visit to the actual factory again, just on our end, just so we can actually see the vehicle, know what we're getting into. All right, so today we're at Terradyne. We're going to talk to Brent. He's going to give us a tour of the facility, and we're going to go take a look at the two trucks that we're going to be painting for Ardbeg. He said there was a few vehicles in there that are done, so we're going to take a look at those as well, get some reference photos, and see what's up.
I mean, it's kind of awe-inspiring to think that something this big actually exists and it's roadworthy.
What is it? 335, 80, 20.
Not bad.
Run flat.
Kind of just disbelief, really, that A, we get to see it, and B, we get to work on it. Not many people get a chance in their lives to actually even see one of these, let alone work on one.
Like, it's a 350-pound door, and it still closes like a dream. Saying that there's a ladder that comes out of the bottom here. You can actually use it so that if you're looking up the skyline, there's like a ladder that comes out of the floor.
I was super excited just for myself as a business owner, but also for the guys to work on something like this. It was really exciting. So.
So after seeing the renders of what the truck would look like to seeing the shop space, we had to do a lot of work to get the shop ready to pull these trucks in.
We measured our booth and we realized it would just fit in the booth. So we actually had to come up with a way to make a booth extension so that the trucks would actually fit so that we could physically paint them. Kind of just chomping at the bit to just get working on it. Because of this whole COVID pandemic, we requested that the trucks get delivered at nighttime.
A semi basically rolled up at 11 p.m. at night. The boss called a couple of the boys in to help him unload it off the truck. The truck was huge. The trailer was very narrow. It had about 1.5 inch clearance on each side of the tire. He was probably super shocked that he had to take it off the trailer.
Not gonna say I wasn't nervous, because I was. The cool thing with the Gurkhas is that they actually have microphones inside the truck. So when the truck is completely closed, you actually can't hear anything that's going on outside. So when the doors are completely closed, there's actually speakers on the outside of the truck. The sound is then transferred inside so you can actually hear what's going on. Driving Obviously, you're on a trailer, you're trying to look around, you can't really see anything, so I'm going by what everybody else is telling me. And you just keep the wheel straight, just go really slow and just hope for the best.
He's got so much room on this side.
You're in.
It was huge. It was absolutely massive.
The trucks were almost as tall as, the wheels were almost as tall as me. The trucks are taller than everybody.
I've been around a lot of mud trucks, I've been around a lot of lifted trucks, but the Gurkha has something special about it.
Yeah, the pictures don't do it justice. It's really when you walk up right next to it, it's like you get that, the whole peripheral of the vehicle just keeps getting like larger and larger, and you're like, oh my goodness, when does this thing stop?
Whenever I get a project that I've been anticipating for so long, I just want to get started. I just want to get at it and just start the process. It's like when you get a new toy and you didn't realize it had this feature, and then it's just like the best thing about it.
The siren is, you can speak. Oh, right? Yeah. Dog, that's a cop. Hey, stop it.
I wasn't expecting the sirens or the LED lights.
Oh, man.
One truck has freaking a smoke machine. And I'm like, what? So I was like, this is gonna be freaking sick. Like, I tried to find the smoke machine button, didn't find it, but.
With a project like this, or any project really, making sure everything stays organized is really important. Taking everything off is very easy. Putting everything back on in the same order is a little bit more difficult.
So we had to remove the spare tire off the side. That was massive.
There's actually a boat winch that is inserted into the side of the truck to actually lift it, crank it, and lift it up off the truck.
It's quite a hassle, but for a 300-pound tire, spare tire, being that, we got it off at a reasonable pace. All the window trims needed to come off. The rear bumpers, the side of the bumpers needed to come off.
Mud guards, the fenders.
The headlights had to come out, the taillights had to get masked, turn signals came off, and all this stuff had to be rewired back together to make the final package.
The signals and the strobe lights were hardwired to the front and rear bumpers, and we needed to take those off in order to clear them.
Open all these up.
Okay.
Put a piece of tape on one side of the cut and a piece of tape on the other side of the cut, and then number them. So
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 2, 2,
Exactly.
3, 3.
So that when I go back to solder them together,
Yeah.
it's 1, 1. This one goes to this one. This
you
one
can be
goes to this.
colorblind and fucking
Exactly.
be able to. Okay.
When you're under a time crunch, you're trying to do things quickly but effectively. So the last thing you want is to damage or to scuff a part that's not getting painted, because you can't technically fix it. Things like the door handles are made out of plastic, so if we scuff everything around it but end up scuffing the door handles by accident, now you have to fix that. So it's kind of just a safety net to protect the parts that aren't actually getting any paint work done, so that they're not damaged in the end. So everything on the truck comes seam sealed, especially the mirrors. There's a lot of electronics inside the mirrors, there's a lot of wires, there's microphones inside the mirrors. So the reason why they silicone them obviously is to protect it from the elements. The problem with that when you're doing paint work is paint doesn't like silicone. It doesn't like any type of petroleum products. To prep the truck, normally we would use orbitals. Because of the time crunch and because we didn't want to change the actual paint color, I elected to go with red Scotch for the entire thing. One, because there's a lot of hard lines, and hard lines are basically right angles or 45-degree angles. When you're sanding with orbitals, you have a more likely chance of actually cutting through.
In the same way that these trucks were hand-built, all of the work that went into prepping them for paint was done by hand.
It's just very time consuming. Nothing really special about it. You gotta grin and bear it and just get it done.
You can't miss any little section, or that will be an access point for dirt, water, then to peel up that clear coat, and then off it comes. Once everything was thoroughly red Scotch and scuffed up so paint could stick, before pulling it into the booth, we would blow the entire truck down with the air compressor and go over the entire truck with SX, which is a wax and grease remover.
Driving a truck like this outside is not difficult. Driving it inside a building and getting it where you want it to is a lot more difficult.
And that was like 32-point turns to get that thing from point A to point B, just over a couple inches.
Thankfully, these trucks are well built. They come from the factory with an incredible turning radius.
So whenever you're doing any type of paintwork on a vehicle or any type of project really, you want to mask off areas that you don't want paint to stick to. Even if it's not even close to where you're painting, overspray can get on everything. Because of the nature and the design of the paintwork that we were doing, making sure that there was no overspray on areas that we don't want paint on is very essential.
Yeah, so we masked off like side steps,
Mirrors, door handles,
windshields, the windows.
We need to mask off the tires.
front grills, weather stripping around all the doors.
All those tiny things that don't need airbrushing, like even little bolts, those all need to be masked off.
mirrors came bare plastic. Paint that we use won't stick to bare plastic. You have to have something to spray onto. You have to have a painted surface to spray onto. So in order to match the look of the truck, we had to prep and prime the mirrors so that when Tim goes on and does his airbrushing work, the paint inevitably sticks to the actual mirrors. For the Enoa truck, they wanted the gray smoke on top of the hood, but they wanted a black emblem. Because the base coat's already black, we actually use that to our advantage. So we put the logo on top of the hood. When Tim sprayed on top of it, when you peel off the actual vinyl logo, it's black underneath. So while the guys from Kaufman Signs finish up the front of the truck, Tim's gonna start airbrushing on the smoke on the rear door.
So Tim started off airbrushing the rear end of the Gurkha, and he started to do all of his airbrush work as he would normally do any other artwork as what comes to his mind.
Gladly, I started with the rear of the truck. The thing is that I had to start over.
Jeremy, our head designer for the truck, he looked at it and he's like, it looks a little too cartoony and a little more fake.
We just kind of looked at it and it's like, it's not the same as the rendering.
So Tim's like, okay, well I can just wipe it off and we start again.
Shane took gun wash basically to the entire back of the truck and took off all the paint.
We came up with, when we talked about it, it says, no, it really has to look just like the image, where the smoke is very cloud-like and not streamy-like.
Round 2. Fight.
Yeah, so a vehicle that size, you have to use pretty much 20 times more paint. I had to use a heavy actual, what they call a touch-up, I think it's called a touch-up gun, the small.
The gold one?
Yeah, I start with that for just to lay my base, to give it that very, now I have, you tweak the equipment so that it just lays a certain type of pattern, because if you have too much of a fan, it'll look boxy, so you narrow it down a little bit. So, you know, like I said, every painter and artist, they have their different ways of tweaking things.
So the reason why we masked off the rest of the truck other than the roof is because when you're spraying down on everything, overspray gets everywhere. So instead of getting overspray on our freshly painted sides, which already look exactly how we want it to, we want to protect the sides from getting any overspray.
Airbrushing the front of the vehicle, airbrushing the side of the vehicle, it's pretty much like a canvas on an easel. It's there, you have that perfect angle, you don't have to do anything. As opposed to having something that's laying flat. Now, if you have a gravity feed gun, the paint lays on top. So one of the things you have to worry about is not to over tilt and cause, you know, the paint to spill out.
So once Tim finished all of his airbrushing, all the parts that we put back on need to come back off. So mirrors, the front grille, all 4 fender flares, and the top hatch, those are the main big things. Those all came right back off the truck because we needed to get into all the nooks and crannies that we couldn't normally get if we sprayed them on the vehicle.
So basically the second Gurkha showed up. And this one was a tiny bit different. It had red stitching in the seats and the leather. It had red wheels.
So we drew up some plans in order to make essentially a makeshift booth extension. I shouldn't say makeshift, that sounds terrible.
What do you mean? It's makeshift as f***.
No, I know, but it just, I don't know, doesn't sound great.
Fair enough, but if you say it's a f***ing proper booth extension...
Yeah, no it's not.
Someone take this.
Just hold that ladder for him. Yeah, I'd like to have it on the outside, but it's practically on this side. On that side, we can get the ladder on the outside to do it, but on this side, it's not like we really can. Okay.
We made a skeleton frame out of 2x4s, and then we went to one of the local hardware stores to get vapor barrier. And essentially we made our own booth. Working on both trucks at the same time is essential. So planning everything out in a way that neither truck is holding up progress on the other is something that we really had to focus on. So while the Anoa truck was in the booth getting prepped for clear coat, the wee Beastie truck was being disassembled.
No, I know, but I can't really touch anything other than this.
Taking the vinyls off is not hard, it's just very time consuming. So being patient, making sure that you're not taking off too quickly, you're gonna damage the paint underneath it. It's a very time consuming process. Once we had the Anoa truck fully clear coated, we had to move it entirely into the booth. Then we took down the booth extension, and then we were getting the other truck ready for airbrushing.
Okay.
Oh, I almost caught that too.
So just like the Anoa truck, we had to mask off certain areas for sanding and started scuffing the surface and get it ready for airbrushing. Done scuffing the surface, we peeled off the dusty masking tape, wiped down the entire truck with degreaser to get it ready for tin. So once we had finished cleaning the surface of the wee Beastie truck, we could start masking the truck for airbrushing. While we got started doing that, the guys from Kaufman Signs came by to apply the decals to the now clear-coated Anoa truck. We have a rear full bottle on the back of the truck, and then we have a much larger bottle on the top of the truck. And then on the sides, we have kind of like on a 30-degree angle, the branding and the name of the actual whiskey itself. By the time the decals had been applied, we were finishing up the masking on the wee Beastie truck. Now Tim can start airbrushing and we can get started assembling the NOA truck.
When you saw tears, airbrush tears on vehicles, boats, motorcycles, whatever, they were always so very 1980s like, you know. The nice part about this, it's on a black vehicle, so it doesn't have to be as vivid as the 80s used to be, where the tears and openings look really cartoony and they got that over glimmering chromy shade to it. This was very subtle.
So after Tim had finished all the airbrushing on the claws, it was time to rebuild the booth extension for the last time and put the wee Beastie truck in for final clear coat. Once the wee Beastie truck was clear coated, it was time to do the final two steps in the project, which was assembling and applying the decals to the wee Beastie truck. So for the NOA truck, it's kind of more classy, a little bit more subdued, a little bit more mature looking, whereas the wee Beastie truck is a little bit younger looking, it's more aggressive. So you have to have the vinyls reflect the mood that you're looking for each truck. Once we finally got both trucks completely finished, everybody went home to get some sleep because it was a really long few weeks. The following day, we brought the trucks outside, cleaned them up, brought them in the sunlight so that we can get a final look of our hard work. So.
When the Gurkhas came in, it was a very intimidating job. The prep work and everything that we do normally on tanks and bumpers, those normally stay the same, right? Even though it's a big vehicle, you're basically doing the exact same process as you would a small Harley tank and just putting that same process to a massive Gurkha.
We just like working on really unique stuff, so people have different things that they don't think is possible. Let us know and we'll tell you if it's done or not.
I love taking on things that, oh no, you can't paint on this. Oh no, this can't be done. I'm like, yeah, I'll make sure it can.
We don't do cheap paint jobs and we never will.
No one does the detailed work that we do. No one does the caliber and the level that we do.
We're not just your normal refinishing or restoration shop. Any custom work that's you want precise, you're gonna get it here.